Hi everyone, it's Ryan here, representing Disney Pin Love. Welcome back to our channel. It is the 28th day of Vlogmas, so December 28th. And unfortunately for you, you just have me today. So we're gonna do something a little bit different. We're trying some new technology. I'm actually at my sit-stand desk right now in my office space. So I'm on a webcam, recording the audio a different way, and you're actually not gonna see me for most of this video. Like I said, we're gonna do something a bit different today, and I'm going to try to share a lot on the computer screen and record over that. So what we're gonna do today is talk a little bit about travel and trip planning in general. So just by way of background, a little quick travel history on me. I was a pretty lucky only child, which meant I got to go on a fair bit of vacations when I was a kid. And they were all mostly North American based, a lot of traveling into the States. My parents actually took me to Disney, so the story goes, when I was only 18 months old. That was my first time at Disney World. So one thing that was super cool for me, once I graduated from university in 2009, my part-time job turned into a full-time job, and I was asked, as 22-year-old Ryan, hey, do you want to go live in the Philippines for 6 months and work in Manila? So absolutely, I was all over that at the time. It was a great experience for me, and I was really bitten with the travel bug at that point. No, not malaria. But I got to do some solo travel into Vietnam, so Saigon, aka Ho Chi Minh City, the Mekong Delta. I got to have a long weekend in Thailand, so I saw Bangkok and Ayutthaya. And one of the highlights of the trip was I took a week off in the middle of my time and went to Japan. So some great friends from university flew out and met me, so I went and did sort of that week with my friends Alex and Duncan. So after coming back from that, I met Laura about a year and a half later, so right at the tail end of 2010, and her and I, we've done a lot of travel too. We've been pretty lucky, but again, it's been very North American based. So we went out to the west coast of Canada, where we had a week in Victoria. We've done Quebec, so Montreal and Quebec City. We've done all over Nova Scotia in Canada. In the States, we've done certainly the Four Corners, so I guess working clockwise, we did Seattle and the surrounding area. We've been to New York City and Philadelphia. We've been in North Carolina. We've been in Charleston, South Carolina, in Atlanta, certainly in Florida a few times, luckily. We've been in California. We did the fly into San Francisco and do the beautiful coast drive down to Los Angeles. We cut into Las Vegas a few times. We've been to Anaheim and had a day at Disneyland even. And I guess in the center we would have done Nashville, parts of Ohio and Michigan, that sort of thing. So I was finally getting Laura all on board to do a longer flight. It's going to cost us a bit more money, but let's travel further afield and do some international travel. And I thought Japan would actually be the first thing because I have some familiarity. It's, only a 12-hour flight, so it's, sort of medium length, I suppose, and certainly a really safe and easy to travel to destination. And then what happened? COVID. Yes, COVID. So those plans are on hold, but I still wanted to take this opportunity to more focus on, I guess, my approach to travel planning. So we're going to do a few different things. I'm going to look back at our Disney 2019 trip and show you sort of what artifacts I created as a result of that trip. Talk a little bit about the trip that we never got to go on. So we had a week and a half booked at French Quarter, which we were looking so forward to, and had to cancel that, of course, because of COVID. And then we'll talk a little bit about this first future aspirational international trip where we'll get to Japan, and maybe I'll even show just a few pictures from my trip there back in 2009. So thank you. Let's get going. Okay, as promised, this is what I put together after we came home from that week away at Disney World in 2019. So I started with a day 0 just because that was a travel day. We flew from Detroit to Orlando, and then what I did each day was just captured the date, the park or parks that we went to, how long we spent there, the hours that we were there. I used the pedometer on my phone to just get an idea of the number of steps that we took. We have a really brief overview of what the weather was like, where we slept that night too, because we stayed in 2 different hotels throughout the trip. And then just have a very sort of a high-level description of each attraction that we did that day. So where you see FP in brackets, that just represents that we used a fast pass. So I'll just scroll through this pretty quickly. You can see we had a non-park day where we investigated Celebration, Florida, which was a lot of fun. Had another day outside of the parks where we did Disney Springs, a bit more of a relaxed day. Lucked out with a lot of beautiful weather near the end of the trip, which was fabulous. Yeah, lots of steps. Because I'm a data nerd, I wanted to capture cumulatively how many park days we had, how many times we visited each park, the total number of hours that we spent in the parks, and then what that averaged out to per day. Also, I recorded that we had 469 Memory Maker photos taken by Disney PhotoPass photographers, and Laura and I probably took about another 1,000 on our own, so quite a few pictures from that trip. I'm a huge fan of the website TripAdvisor, so this is just a, I guess a more descriptive trip report that I would have written and shared back with that community. So maybe that's something that I'll link to in the description. And finally, just a bit of an appendix. I wanted to highlight each attraction that we went to by park. So just sort of a different view of that same sort of trip report that was above. Okay, so just a neat little piece of trivia. This was for our 2020 trip that never was. We were going to do something a bit different and drive. I just think it's so interesting where we live, about an hour and a half west of Toronto. We could take 2 completely different routes. So going to a central place like Disney Springs from our home, and whether we took I-75 or I-95, you can see that the miles are actually identical. So I just think that's so funny that you can take one route and go through Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and into Florida, or you could do a completely different route through New York State, Pennsylvania, Maryland, a little bit of Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, and again, even the kilometers, it's only off by 1 kilometer. How cool, eh? So, some planning for that 2020 trip. I love my spreadsheets. So I made a spreadsheet where I wanted to put on every single attraction and then identify the land that it was in and the park. So that's what we've done here, and I have it sorted by park and then by land. I wanted to say whether or not we did it in 2019 and whether we plan to do it in 2020, and whether that's sort of like a yes, for sure we're going to do it, or M for maybe. So I'll just scroll down this quick. You can see that we did want to do a lot more in 2020 than we had done in 2019, and we also wanted to be a bit more brave and push ourselves on some more adventurous rides that we didn't do previously. The other thing that I did was just call out the resorts, because we definitely like to check out a few of those on each trip. Okay, so finally we're going to talk a little bit about that trip that we can't wait to do in the future when we hit the road again, and that is going to Japan. Not just to do Tokyo Disneyland, but to explore a bit of the rest of the country as well. So it's about an 11 or 12 hour flight from Toronto to Narita, which is where we would get our start. I think we'd then go to the furthest point first that I would want to go on this trip. So we would go west to Kyoto, and Kyoto has a lot of beautiful history to see there. Then once we're done in Kyoto, I think we would double back on the bullet train, probably stop for a night or 2 around Mount Fuji to explore that, and if not, even attempt to climb some of it. Coming back again to where we started, I think we would then go to Tokyo Disneyland. So if we do a zoom there, you can see the 2 parks, Tokyo Disney Resort and Tokyo Disney Sea. So we'd probably want to spend at least 3 or 4 days there. And then I think we would certainly want to finish off with some time in Tokyo. So I have just highlighted the very famous Shibuya crossing, where you can certainly see videos of that on YouTube and everything, but it's just sort of pandemonium there, a very busy area. As promised, a few pictures from my trip to Japan back in 2009. So we started in Kyoto at a graveyard of all places, but as you can see, it's quite different. It's very beautiful and very serene for sure. This is a temple in Kyoto and a restaurant in Kyoto, and that's great about Japan. Almost every restaurant has super accurate plastic representations of their menu outside, so it's very easy to order if you're a traveler and don't know the language. This is a residential home in Kyoto, such different architecture, and again, just so beautiful. Myself in front of the Golden Pavilion in Kyoto, and a rock garden as well in Kyoto. This is me again on the side of Mount Fuji, did the climb that year. And we stayed for a few nights, my friends and I, at a ryukin just at the foot of Mount Fuji. So this is a traditional Japanese toilet. And here we have an instruction sheet for using the onsen or hot springs. And we definitely wanted to make sure that we were not breaking any customs. So lots of sort of guidelines, but it was quite an awesome experience, actually. A wonderful meal at the ryukin, or Japanese style hotel, and me in a yukata or robe. This is a Japanese green tea, so the matcha powder chocolate chip muffin, which was delicious, and I think I had that on the bullet train or Shinkansen. This is Tokyo Tower, and you can guess where it gets its inspiration. And Shibuya Crossing in downtown Tokyo, which is just a hive of humanity for sure. And a shot of the palace in Tokyo, the imperial grounds at the center of the city, and the beautiful gardens that are there. And finally, some shots from a war museum. So again, I wanted to check out some history. This is a Japanese perspective on World War II, which is quite different. Thanks so much for coming along on that trip. I know that was something different. I hope you enjoyed it. And for the comment below, I would just love to know if you think I'm crazy. Or do you enjoy trip planning? Do you do the trip planning in your family? Would you do more than I've done? Would you do less? What do you think? I'd love to hear all about it, and I'll definitely respond to all your comments. Thanks so much.